I'd like to call Leominster Planning Board meeting, 9/15/2025, 6:30. We were originally scheduled for downstairs, but the city council we had a conflict, so I hope everybody can fit in here okay. Scheduled public hearings, public hearing for definitive subdivision application for Bassett Street, map 328, parcel 37, 41, 44, 48, 56, and 58. Representative, please.
Good evening, my name is Anthony Cleves. I'm with Haley Ward here on behalf of FWP Realty. We're the design engineers for the project. So as was mentioned, we're here for a residential subdivision. It's a 9-lot subdivision for single-family homes off of the existing Bassett Street. Bassett Street is an existing way. It is private, but we're on the east side of Bassett Street. So if you're familiar with the area, you come in off of Central Street, you come up Bassett, Creasy goes off to your left, you come around, and then I think what's most well known is the softball complex that exists on the west side of Bassett Street. Bassett Street continues down and then opens up to the parking lot of the Lassity Field complex. So we're on the opposite side of Bassett Street from that. Again, 9-lot, single-family home, residential subdivision. Tried to show here, you can kind of see where some of the house placements would be, some of the driveways. A little different from the preliminary subdivision plan, you may recall from last year. What we tried to do is minimize the disruption to on-street parking that exists on Bassett Street. Again, for the softball complex there, people park them along here in the parallel parking on Bassett. So we tried to condense some of the locations of the driveways and reduce the impact for that. Municipal utilities exist, but we have to extend them for the full length of the project. So there is a water main there. We'll have to extend the water main out past the lots. Sewer main exists, same thing, we have to extend it out. Stormwater, there is no real stormwater system in Bassett Street until you get to the beginning. So as part of the project, we're gonna put in a stormwater system. Catch basins, manholes, rerouting the stormwater collected from existing Bassett Street. And then we're creating one main infiltration basin, infiltrate the stormwater, clean it. So picking up some of that existing runoff from the impervious surfaces, treating that, again, infiltrating that. The houses will have infiltration chambers for the roof runoff, help get some water back into the ground. Then the outfall to this main basin will tie back into the existing stormwater system of Bassett Street. We also have a smaller basin in here, because what happens is some of the overland flow from the Lassity complex comes across and makes its way over here. We can't quite pick all of that up. So that's a brief overview of the project, but you may recall from the preliminary, some of the discussions that were had was in regards to the softball complex, and the board had asked as part of that to kind of look at some of the parking and what's happening there at the Lassity Field. So we took a look at that, and this thing was also submitted as well. And we looked at areas that could possibly pick up some more parking. And so we identified on this plan, again, it should have in your packet, 3 areas where some new parking could be added to the complex to help offset some of the spaces that will be lost due to the driveway cuts for the project. And so we have 3 areas. One area here is just adding parallel parking on the west side of Bassett Street on the same side as the field. In here, that picks up about 7 spaces. Right now, that area just isn't graded out, it's not paved to have parking there. There are no parking signs along here, because what happens is it gets tight to have parallel parking on both sides, because there is no bump out for that. So per code, 8-foot wide parallel parking space, 22 feet long per code. So that's one spot there to pick up 7 spaces. And then we're looking at an option of putting in a new parking lot. This is an area with a few trees in there, a little bit of a knoll. to regrade that, level that out, and put in, so we had 35 spaces, adding 35 spaces there. And another spot we looked at as an option, right now, the complex has a double stacked batting cage in this area here. So we looked at, the possibility, if you move that batting cage and put it over here, just off the edge of the pavement, that opens up this area, then you could, by code, you could fit spaces here and spaces there. It picks up about 9 spaces in doing that. So if you add all of these things in together, it's 28, I believe it was. Yeah, we'd have a net gain of 28 parking spaces in excess of what they have striped there now. So, reason we submitted this, this was so we had this plan, met with some of the stakeholders from the rec department and the Lassie Lee complex, kind of had some of the discussions. And the reason we submitted this plan is because the developer would like to commit to that, to these 3 improvements, if the board is in favor of that and there's no other opposition. As part of the project, the applicant would like to commit to that. So that's why we actually submitted this plan as part of the package.
Anthony, so that's 28 more, right? Do you have a count on how many people used to park on Bassett Street, or how many?
So along here, we
Yeah.
there's about 33 parking spaces. Now, it's nothing striped.
So
what
what
we did is we looked
Yeah.
at what the code was. Now,
Yeah.
some people park tighter than that, some people maybe don't. Depends on who you are and how close you want to get. So, yeah, there's about 33 parking spaces in here. So we lose,
About 5.
you'll lose, yeah, some more than that, actually. And then we have some perpendicular parking. When the city restriped this parking lot at the end, they striped in some perpendicular spaces here, so you lose, a handful there as well. But, again, this seemed like a really good ad. It's in a nice spot, kind of centralized to some of the fields. As a parking lot, you can get, decent efficiency with the parking, shared aisles and things like that. Makes it safer as well. I think people, and they can, and the softball folks can probably attest to it too, when I've been there, people do park in amongst the trees and everything, they drive up on the slope. It's not built for that. There isn't enough width to meet code for that, so it's not a great safe condition. So this parking lot, we think is gonna really help enhance that area and provide some good safe parking for the complexes as well. So that's the brief overview there. I can get into some of the department head comments. I don't want to take away how we've addressed some of those. If you want to kind of go through the process and let the folks in the audience speak, and I don't want to speak for them.
Why don't you go through it so we can know in advance what you've got?
Yeah. I don't know if you want to start with any certain comments or.
No, nothing in particular,
You're gonna have no parking in front.
What's that?
Your side, you're gonna have no parking.
There's still parking. Yep.
There
So,
will be.
yep. So it would be, we still have striping in there. Let's see. But you just won't be able to park in front of the driveway. So it'll be like parallel parking downtown. You don't park in front of the curb cuts. And so that was actually, it's a good segue into one of the comments from Mike O'Hara was, about the better delineation of that and where people can park and where they can't. So what we added to the plan in the last round of revisions, tough to see it far away, but we added some hatched triangles to really denote that's the end and beginning of the parallel parking. So you can't park in between. So help kind of really visually show that, but also adding striping where there isn't any striping there now. So I guess we'll start with some of the comments from Mike O'Hara. Hopefully I capture most of them. And he reiterated some of the comments, so we'll get into some of those when I get to those department heads. Landscaping, he had noted that we didn't have any species of trees on the plan. That's accurate and on purpose to some degree. Over the years, we typically would put in what the city of Leominster would like to put in, and that changes over the years. depending upon what the species that's preferred is. So we're happy to, if there's something the plan board wants, or as a condition, we can coordinate with the city on what type of species, whether it's a conservation or a forestry. So we just left that purposely not specific, so we can do whatever the city would like us to do. Wetland resources was a comment both from conservation and their interim planner talking about how there are wetlands and a certified vernal pool out back behind one of the fields over in here, and then out in the back where the batting cages are. Did a site walk with both the conservation agent and interim planning director to get a real good sense of where those are. And they may have sent an updated email, but I think they both felt comfortable that we're well far away from any jurisdictional resource areas that we don't need to file with conservation, unless something were to change. But we'd have to actually do work in one of the softball fields for us to be in their jurisdiction, so don't see that as an issue. One of the other comments was there is an endangered species delineation out on the back, basically in the wooded area. I reached out to Natural Heritage via email, showed them the project, talked about it, and they said as long as we don't go into that area, we don't need to file with them. It would just be the batting cages, and the intent of that is to put the batting cages right on the edge of the pavement, so very minimal disturbance, so no issues on that. There's a information on the Lassie League, which we'll circle back because that follows up with rec department comments as well. Talked about some of the preliminary subdivision comments that we had. One of the criteria was adding a fence along this neighbor, which we've added that. That came from the preliminary discussions. Preliminary, we asked for a waiver on a sidewalk. This requires one sidewalk on one side, so we added that because you voted against that waiver, so we've added the sidewalk along this side of the street here with curbing. Purposely did not put it on this side as people park there for softball games. So if we put a sidewalk there, it would take away more parking for them. On the original plan, there wasn't a designated centralized post office drop-off box where it's now required. So met with the postmaster, sat down with him and one of their folks. We came up with an area right at the beginning of the project here. Area that they could pull out and not impede traffic. So there'll be a centralized box there. And they were in agreement with that, so we added that to the plans for the last submission. Waivers, the board will discuss those later on. That was streetlights. Was another comment in the police department brought up streetlights as well. What we proposed on the plans for discussion, we showed individual lights at the end of each driveway right along Bassett Street in lieu of streetlights. We don't have a preference one way or the other, so if the board feels strongly to have streetlights in lieu of the end of the driveway lights, that's fine. We're happy to do whatever is the purview of the board. Okay. And again, I think Mike just reiterated some of the department comments, so I'll just zip through those pretty quick.
Drainage easements? What's the second to last highlighted on here?
Yeah, so it's submit language of drainage easements, so we would have drainage easements, so what that's in reference to is we have that basin I mentioned over in here and a basin there, so so we would need easements for, I guess presumably, if we were to petition the city to take over Bassett Street and the drainage to go along with that, it'd be an easement document for that purpose. The easements are shown on the definitive plan, so they're well defined. It would just be, standard course to submit for review and make sure that makes sense. Building approved, Board of Health. Board of Health had concerns with field lighting and effects on new homes. So currently there is no field lighting at the softball complex. Nowadays, typical field lighting is very much directional and pointed down. So there shouldn't, again, that would be up to the city if or when those lights go in to make sure that would happen and not go off into those folks there. Nothing to do with the project. Police department mentioned the streetlights, and that they would recommend streetlights to increase pedestrian safety. They also mentioned that the west side of Bassett Street, which would be this side here, should be posted no parking except for the dedicated lots and proposed parking area A. So they basically, so there are no parking signs here now, so those would maintain. And the police said, well, yeah, they're okay with that, and then just no parking everywhere else, consistent with how it is today. Handicap parking should not be designated in parking area A. That's the 7 parallel parking spaces. We have not dedicated a handicap parking in there. So I believe we meet the comments of the police department, just the streetlights, closing the loop on the streetlights. Assessors, new growth, adding to the tax base, the need for housing, the potential to the retail market for growth, those things that were approved. DPW had no comments. Conservation had asked for more information, but we did that follow sidewalk, so we closed that loop. Fire didn't have any comments, and so then we have the rec department. And so again, in some of the preliminary meetings we had with the softball folks, rec department was also present at all those meetings as well. Fencing that would run from third base, this is things that they would like to have included. Fencing to run from the third base dugout down the left field line to the foul pole to be replaced. So that's gonna be this field here. So there's an existing 4-foot high chain link fence along this side here. So they're requesting that existing chain link fence to be replaced. Let's see, adjustable safety netting to be installed on that same fence line to prevent balls from impacting the home. So it's, if you've been to some other places, you have those taller, netting fence that they can raise up to get a little bit higher than a typical chain link fence. They also requested to have the sewer extended and brought to the concession stand building of the softball complex. So their concession stand building is here. So in the last round of plan updates, we added that to the plans. So the plans you have before you, we do show a pipe going out to there. It'll just have to be some coordination. I don't know that it's known exact nature of where the sewer is there, but some coordination to tie it in. But we've added that right to the plans. That sewer line is shown right on there. And then all affected areas must be restored, including paving and lining. Absolutely, that makes sense. So it's, you can see what we're looking to do, like an approximate limit of repaving. So here it is, basically 30 feet wide repaving, Bassett Street, and then replacing the trench for the drainage down to Central, replacing any trenching there. So those are the comments from the rec department, and so we can discuss those if those are things that the board would like us to do. We've talked to the property owner, and he's agreeable to doing those things. So if that's where we feel the board's in support of that, he would be in support of doing those upgrades as part of the project. The other thing just to mention, it wasn't in any of the comments, but through part of some of the meetings with some of the softball folks, obviously a good concern is during construction, coordination throughout that, absolutely. And so, assuming we can move forward and get into construction, there'll need to be some continuing cooperation, coordination between the developer and the softball folks to make sure that construction is not impacting their operations, which for the most part it really shouldn't. Most of this will be happening during the workday. Probably not a lot of work on the weekends, so hopefully there won't be too much disruption, but I think it's going to be very important for that continued coordination and communication throughout the life of construction, so that one isn't impacting the other. And so that absolutely makes sense, no issues with that. What'll probably happen is they'll probably be just working in here a lot. And then they're putting in utilities, try and do it at a time that there isn't any softball events going on. And when they're done, backfill or plate the road and make sure everything's, we don't want to impact the operation of the softball complex, absolutely not.
And you have contact names both ways?
Yep, and I think it's, and I think it's, we can put it in the condition too, to make sure that there's those kind of, I think pre-construction meeting I think will be important, as well. And, it'll be a small group that's doing the work, so I think it's gonna be very easy I'm sure many of the softball folks probably hate to admit, but they live here. And they'll be here. So that's, I think yeah, absolutely, well, that continued cooperation. And then if folks change, I know sometimes board members change, coaches change, I think it's just a continued communication, make sure we have all the updated information, so there is that flow.
Okay.
I think I
Yeah,
tried to cover most of it, I may not have, so,
okay, you just,
but I'll stay ready. Thank you.
okay, I'll open it up to the audience. Do I have any comments or questions? Anyone has? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Emily and Dan LaCasse from 20 Medio Drive. We just had some questions about more so the lighting and what the nighttime
Nighttime privacy, the new houses are gonna be built to, is it gonna be 2-story cap or 3 stories?
So,
Hey, go ahead.
is it okay? So they're probably gonna be at least a 2-story, single-family
Okay.
home. It'll have to be within the code. So there's a height requirement that the zoning allows. I forget offhand what it is, but they would have to meet the zoning for that. Lighting, there wouldn't be, that's gonna be part of the discussion, what kind of lighting there would be. It's either gonna be your lamp post at the end of a driveway kind of light, or it could be typical street light that you would see in any other residential area or downtown, where you'd have a light pole 20 feet tall, and nowadays, all of that type of lighting needs to be what they call dark sky compliant. So you don't have light pollution where it just openly spills, it's gonna be directed down to illuminate areas on the ground and not illuminate everything around it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's controlled by the city.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Good
And then
question.
I actually, so this would probably be controlled by the city too, but my other question was about the nighttime road traffic safety. So like right now, at the end of Bassett Street, there's the 2 big storage boxes that are right there. Will those remain? Because,
So that's part of the operations of the softball complex. We're not looking to
move that?
impede or impact any of that. That
Okay.
would be their operations. So I can't comment on that.
Yeah, I don't think, there's no light there, there's no night games there.
No. Not right now.
Those are storage
No.
containers. for- for the-
Okay, and
for the
if that
equipment.
was ever to put in lights, there again, we now have requirements on all the lights as much as we can, and to eliminate the overflow, as we call it, okay, to the area. But right now, that's something in the future, and God will address that.
Yeah, that's-
Yeah, the only reason why I asked that question is because right now it's such a dark parking lot, and our backyard butts up right to the parking lot. And just randomly, cars.
People like to go back there and
And
do
just-
donuts
they
and
Oh, I
speed
get it.
around.
Oh, you want lights for a different reason.
Right, so we're not putting in any lights on the city's
Yeah.
property, up in this
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yeah.
But as part of the project, there will be some sort of lighting, which I think we'll further vet out with
Yeah.
the board
Yeah.
along the street, so.
Yeah.
We're not putting any lighting in the parking lot, that's not our property or our project,
Yeah.
but there will be some sort of lighting as you drive up to help illuminate. So if it is pretty dark now, that'll help with some of those safety concerns, I would think. So I think from that, a little more of a deterrent from people trying to hide back there.
Yeah.
With houses and lights and there now, like you said, it's not gonna be as open as it
Right, I
is
mean,
now.
You almost have built-in 24-hour security, because now you have people that have a vested interest that are there all the time.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah.
Peter Thompson, 3 Bassett Street. Can you speak to the location of the houses? Is that just arbitrary for your diagram, or what?
They may shift slightly, but there isn't much room to shift due to the nature of the lots. The way the lots are configured, you have lot width requirements. So like, for example, this house has to be back here because of the lot width requirement.
Okay.
And the nature of these lots, a lot of these are gonna be pushed forward. And again, like I mentioned, we wanna have these driveways kind of side by side to lessen the impact. So maybe on some other subdivisions, you have a little more wiggle room and the lots are bigger. On this one, I don't see that too much. You're pretty much gonna have very similar to where they're located on this plan. Again, may vary a few feet here and there, but not substantially.
Just let you know on that, as far as the planning board is concerned, is we have the criteria is front setbacks, side setbacks. And as long as they meet those criteria, okay, they're allowed to put the house on the lot. And that comes up unless there's something special, and then you would get tied in with the building inspector when they do that. So they'd have to get their permits from the building inspector for the location of the house. But we just make sure that there's certain setbacks are maintained. And then so that the building, call it a building block or a building area, that you're allowed to build a house in.
But I
But
assume the neighbor at 3 Bassett Street is most concerned with
If I
the
can,
closest houses?
if I can comment
Yeah, go ahead.
specifically to Mr. Thompson. So the other thing that we have over on this house here is this is the outfall connection for our drainage system. So there's gonna be a drainage easement here. So this house cannot encroach onto that drainage easement. So this house can't end up right next to your lot because of the nature of the stormwater system. So that's pretty much gonna stay somewhere up in that corner. For in this case, because of that stormwater
Yeah.
system.
Okay, you had another question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Noelle Jordan, Peter's wife, and I want to say thank you for including our recommendation in your plan. I'd also love to work closely with you, just like the recreational people, because we both work from home, and we have meetings all day long, and I actually have people that come to the house, so coordination would be really nice, and obviously we're not going to get in anybody's way, but it would be wonderful if we could work closely.
Do you have any other questions out there? Yes, ma'am.
Tanya, President of Lassie League. I'm a little confused, I just want to clarify. The fencing that to be replaced, is that all the way down the west side? The field 3 and field 2, along with the netting? Only because foul balls will go on both of those fields.
Yep, no, that was just this field here.
So it's just
From
field
the
2?
third base dugout down the left field line to the foul pole.
Okay,
What about this field?
so.
Yeah, no, we weren't planning on doing that, and the rec department didn't recommend that. I mean, that's,
So is this still the high school field, and this is like a
Middle
like a
school.
minor league field?
Well, they kind of use the fields for everything. I know our high school practices on there are JV fields. It was just a matter of, like, for safety, again, you're gonna run into the same thing from field 2 to field 3, with the balls being hit out into their front yards. That's why I was just trying to figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah, another question. Will each lot be sold without a house, or is the developer coming in, building 9 houses, and then selling those?
I don't know if that's been determined yet on how it's gonna go through, whether they're gonna develop them themselves or sell the lots out to make. It's not definitive necessarily one way or the other at this point.
The condition there is anything that we agree on here on the plans, whether the house is this developer or another, everybody has to abide by the same set of rules. Okay, so really, shouldn't make any difference. Coordinating, sometimes you get better with the Lassie League, maybe, but I'd say it should not make a difference whether they build it, okay, or they sell the individual lot.
Well, it just seems like it would stretch out potentially over a couple of years if individual lots went versus...
Right, at this point, we can't answer that question.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Lisa Como from the Leominster Rec Department. First, I want to thank the builder for his willingness to work with us, the Lassie League and the Rec Department. We're very thankful and fortunate for them providing additional parking spots where parking spots would have been eliminated during this process, along with the sewer, moving the batting cages. And I do want to adjust what I had put in, I put field 2, but I want to amend that where we should include field 3 as well for the netting and the fencing as well. That was an oversight on my part, so I do want to include 2 and 3 because it's facing the road, both of those.
Yeah, I don't see that.
I've seen foul balls.
I don't see that being an issue. I thought it was purposely because that field, the kids are not as old as those. So I thought it was intentional. Because, you know, because like the high school is, so I thought it was intentional, but.
Our 13U plays on that bottom field, so they're.
So, yep, I think it's,
So you'll run a netting
we could,
the full length?
we could concede to that, that comment, just adding this
Okay.
field to it. So that same comment from the rec department, including these two fields. And I can reread that just so we have it. Fencing that would run from third base dugout down the left field line to the foul pole to be replaced. Adjustable safety netting installed on fence listed in above item 1 to prevent balls from impacting the home. So those two recommendations for both fields 2 and 3. Is that 2 and 3?
Yeah.
Both fields 2 and 3.
Okay.
So I got a quick question about parking. You kind of alluded to it already. I was looking at the assessor's map, where the
Want me to get the plan?
where the batting cages are, at the very top of your plan. You talked about maybe moving batting cages.
Oh, page. Is that pavement in here now?
It's
Kind of
old.
gravel, kind of green.
I think it seems like it's gravel, but I think it's
Just crumbling.
old deteriorated binder. Just from,
Okay.
it's stable from
You're
those.
gonna pave this, or you're gonna have it gravel?
This would be a new parking, so right now, like, we'd have to cut that grade down about 8 feet, because it's a little bit of a knoll.
Yeah.
So we have to cut that down, and presumably, we may have to come back to the board for site plan approval, we can discuss that, because we're creating parking spaces, or it's on city property, I don't know how that will work out, but we haven't gone into a full design on it, because we didn't want to do a full design if there was other comments that came up from that. But we've done enough, you know, we think we're gonna need a retaining wall along this side, but this would be level with the driveway, but this, right now, that climbs about 6 to 8 feet, so we'd be leveling that off to fit that in there.
So back
Back
there.
there, so right now, it's a stone dust, crushed gravel, stone dust batting cage, so if that's something that makes sense, that works for the softball folks, you know, we can leave it as gravel and you can park on it, or we could strip it and pave it,
So you can put that.
you know, whatever, but,
So looking at the assessor's map, that lot goes pretty far back. You kind of hinted at it, but you didn't make the connection, just for the record. That's wetlands,
So
and that's
this line-
conservation, so you
this
couldn't
line
push
right
this.
here.
this
Exactly.
back,
Wetlands
right?
line.
this line right here,
Yeah.
based on the state's GIS, is a priority habitat.
Okay.
So that's the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program that has that line delineated, which basically, plus or minus, follows the tree line.
Yeah.
So when I reached out to them, they said, oh, as long as you're not going beyond what's kind of already built, they have no issue. So if you do, you get into whatever that endangered species might be.
That is your question, is that will be a separate project through the city?
So this one
parking,
here,
but yeah.
yep, so we'd have to come back for a site plan.
Yeah, because that's not your property, so
It's the city's property.
It's the city's property, so you have to, let's have an agreement with the city and the city council to do the work. But you can be part of your commitment.
So that's, yeah, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's sort of on the outside there, I
So
realize
we can
that.
figure that out, but, you know, it's, what's the.
Right.
Because I don't think the city's gonna be paying, or the last league's not gonna be paying to put in.
No.
So.
So be part of your agreement, okay, but is you have to get, you know, have to work with the city, and that would be a separate
Right,
part.
because I know with on other projects, we've done work on other folks' property, the city does it, they enter into a right of entry agreement. So, again, we can work, whatever's the appropriate way, we'll absolutely, you know, go through that, we can coordinate.
And one of the things in that regard is, and around the discussion, and we can get into it just a little bit further, but we can probably sequence this, that we get that parking corrections done prior to you starting construction. So you would phase that part first, and maybe an off-season.
Well, I think
Yeah.
ideally, we'd like not to do that, if possible, because if construction were to get going sooner rather than later, if we still have to go through full design, going through city council,
Well, yeah, we'll talk about
You know,
scheduling
so I think
on
it's,
that, yeah.
you know, being part of the condition, you know, maybe tie it to occupancy as opposed to construction, so that, because what's gonna happen is, to make this work well, we're gonna do all this work kind of together.
Yeah, I realize you gotta have, when you bring the equipment in,
Right,
you
so we're
gotta
gonna
do
be,
it.
you know, maybe doing some clearing
Yeah.
here, that same tree guy will then pop over there, maybe tree, you know, clear that.
Maybe I'll rephrase it, this, when you're doing it, try to keep some parking places open,
No, I think, but that's where,
your coordination is gonna
but
come.
that's where, until the project is finished, you can still park, there's not gonna be any driveways. You
Yeah,
know, so it's, maybe, you know, tying it more to occupancy or something like that might be, may make more sense. But I guess that's part of more the construction coordination, it is gonna be very important, that this work is not gonna impede the softball operations. Very good.
okay. Do I have any other questions there? Good, sounds pretty good to me.
I have,
Okay.
Sean, can I read something?
Yeah, go
into
ahead.
the record? So that one neighbor could not be, or a butter, well, neighbor, couldn't be present, so I'm going to read her email to the planning board into the record. I hope you're doing well. My name is Natalia Breedy at 12 Amadeo Drive. Our home directly abuts the proposed Bassett Street subdivision. I'm reaching out to share a few concerns and requests in advance of the upcoming planning board meeting, as you suggested. You may remember we're the family who tried to attend the last planning board meeting, but unfortunately couldn't get inside the building as the doors were locked. Number one, privacy fence request. Given the proximity of the new lots to our backyard, we kindly request that a privacy fence be installed along the property line to maintain a sense of separation and ensure the privacy and safety of our household. This would go a long way in preserving the character and peace of our home environment as the area transitions. Large tree concerns near property line. There are several very tall, older trees along the back of our property, close to the fence line that borders the proposed subdivision. I'm concerned that due to their size and age, one or more of them could potentially fall onto a future home or driveway. We are not in a financial position to remove them ourselves, and we would not want to be held liable in the event of damage. Could the city or the developer assess whether those trees would be removed or mitigated as part of the subdivision work? Lastly, based on our property's location right next to the new lots, is there anything else you believe we should be aware of, that's us, or anything else we might consider requesting at this stage of the planning process? We are not opposed to thoughtful development and understand that the area's growth is important. We only ask that nearby homeowners like ourselves be considered as part of the process. Thank you very much for your time and support. Please let me know if you need further information. Warm regards, Natalia Reedy.
Okay.
So do you see where her lot is? Yeah.
So they're looking at the GIS, and I hope everyone got a GIS map there too, so you can kind of see. So their house is up here, they have two parcels shown on the GIS, it's basically one. Their house sits up here on Amadeo, about 140 feet away from this property line is their house. Then there's a shed back here. This is an existing wire fence, and then this is wood in here. We don't have any house right up on the back of that. This is one of the lots that has the house kicked back. So we're already built in with an 80-foot separation to the next property line of the next lot, and then you'll have a 15-foot setback. So we're 90, the house will be 95 feet away from that property line. But we're also not gonna go on someone else's property and start cutting down the trees, but I don't think that's gonna be a concern if they have trees on their property that are aged.
Yeah, and that's quite a bit of grade there, back there anyway.
Yeah, and so then they're up higher a little bit, we're dropping down, so we're a little bit lower. And so I don't think it's worth putting a fence in this case. We're not, they have about 35 feet of existing woods left over. You'd be putting a fence in the woods. And the fence isn't gonna stop any sightline because you're up higher than that anyway. So I think in this particular case, different from here, where the Thompson's home is really tight to that property line, we're really close to them. So I think that's why the board at that time made sense to ask for that to be included as part of that, because they are right on top of that existing property. I don't think it warrants it my opinion in this particular
Okay.
case.
Do we have any other comments? Any comments from the board?
I think he did a nice job with the coordination here.
I think it's a better plan than the
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, no,
We have
it's-
a lot of changes.
that's the process, and the
That's
process,
the
process
process.
works.
No, and it continue the communication too.
It's
That's,
important.
uh,
It's
Very
important.
Do we have any outstanding items that we need to continue the hearing, or we can close?
No, not that I know.
Well, I just had,
waivers.
we have, yeah, they have a bunch of.
We gotta deal with waivers, but, you know.
17, but a lot of them are.
A lot, it's just, I think it's how the regulations are written, some of those stuff. and-
17.
A lot of them, I feel like,
So we
No
approved
one's
most
had-
of them,
yeah.
17.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the same.
I think I brought up the last time, although this process is probably longer, like you could get that street accepted and put in
A&R.
A&Rs and not notify anybody, so
Mhm.
that's why this is a better way to do it.
Are you planning to have this street accepted at a later
Yeah,
date?
that would be the intent, yeah.
Okay.
Which I think
So
would
this street
would
is gonna
benefit
be,
everybody.
because that was my question, this street is part of the subdivision,
Yes,
rather than saying, because it's not an accepted street at this time.
right, exactly. And
Okay.
That's the catch.
Yeah, so I wanted to make that
Yes.
clear, that when we get to the pavement
So-
of the street and all that.
So some of the waivers, absolutely, John, you're right on the money. Like, I think one of them on top of my head is the pavement is not centered in the right of way. It's not, and we don't plan to change that.
Yeah.
That's what exists. If we try to change that, we're gonna impact the softball folks more. So
We can't do
you'll
it.
see some of those waivers, you know,
Right.
are tied to it being an existing street.
And when we do that-
You're repaving already.
This dashed line, sorry to interrupt, John,
Okay,
this is being resurfaced from this dashed line over to the new curb and sidewalk.
right.
But they're not repaving the parking lot
Correct,
itself.
no, which was just
That
repaved
was
not
it.
too long
This,
ago.
yeah, this
Yeah.
past year.
The other question, I was just looking at this last house. It looks like it's some vertical parking spaces there, right at the end of the driveway.
Oh, here.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's perpendicular spaces there.
and those are gonna be removed.
Yes, so right in here, and then would have to we show them dark here, we have to restripe those, because we're repaving this. Goes back to the recreation department's comment to make sure that you restore what was there, so anywhere there was striping, we're gonna restrict that.
But you can't have striping there with the driveway.
Right, so, yeah, so there's no striping here. The striping starts there, just outside the driveway.
It looks like it covers the driveway,
That's the existing
the
striping.
existing
So
striping.
it's tough to see, because the existing is a little bit lighter. We wanted to be able to show where the existing
Okay.
spaces that are striped, so you can see where
Right,
some of the
right.
parking.
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah,
that was
absolutely
clear.
right, yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing is that the two drainage, okay,
Yep,
there and there. You might want to talk to the DPW on that. They have been hesitant to saying that the city would take over maintenance of those. And so what we've done in the past, and for these 9 houses, you'd have a homeowners association. And that's gonna be and we might have to, you know,
yeah, I mean, I think it's,
or find a way to cover those.
yeah, I mean,
The
maybe this was a
maintenance
different
of those,
issue.
John,
For City Street?
if they're gonna accept the street, you don't need a homeowners association.
Right.
I'm talking not about the, but if
Drainage.
they accept the street, typically the drainage has not been included by the DPW. So now,
Drainage are on people's property.
so then what happens, they're basically drainage on people's property. So we have to have easements to that, but you also, not only an easement, we have to have the DPW agreeing to do the work.
Maintenance.
The alternate to that, and I don't know where they stand today, the alternate to that is you make it a small homeowners association, not a big home, but just so that those two areas become common to everybody and some kind of a maintenance program. I'm not talking about a whole big maintenance program, homeowners, but maybe a page or so saying, something would be set up. So that's the
Then you
only,
have to have somebody, that's really complicated.
well, I really think that the city should do it, okay? But they've been reluctant in the past.
Management company.
I don't know, DPW approved it
I know.
without any comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And who's to say that, I'm not saying in this particular case, well, this one's a little different, because Bassett Street exists.
Yeah,
We're actually adding drainage to improve Bassett Street. So this is an improvement to a private existing
Mhm.
public way. So this one might be a little different too.
it's just a
But
point
also,
of
let's-
discussion. I don't have a,
Yep.
you know,
But also too, let's say like a larger subdivision maybe takes a number of years to build out, and you may not be back to getting acceptance 15 years later.
Right.
Everyone is gone.
Yeah.
That was there before, and the preferences changed, so, yeah, I mean, we can reach out, I don't know if it's worth, I mean, I get, like Carol mentioned, that they didn't have any comments. You could put a condition in to, be aware,
yeah.
you have to work with the DPW.
It's a good condition, be aware.
But I don't know the best way to do
Maybe
that.
attaches the city should do it.
Yeah, I don't know.
The way I see it is if they approved it and now I think they're obligated to,
To clean it,
Maintain it.
maintain it.
Do we need to go through these waivers, or are we good to move?
We already approved many of them.
Anthony, can you just go through them to make sure the board's all set with that?
Yeah.
Will there have to be fire hydrants added?
Yes. Yeah, so, if I can address that comment. There's an existing hydrant right near field 3. Thank you. So we're gonna extend that up, and then we're adding a hydrant at the end, so just where that area where those storage containers are, so they have a hydrant here. So there is no fire protection back there now, so we'd have a hydrant at that end there. Two purposes: provides fire protection for this area, which has none now, but also it's a means to flush that line for water quality.
Plus it adds some safety to the back neighborhoods too.
Yeah.
You can run hoses to that hydrant as well.
It's a win.
You ready to zip through these?
zip is the operative word.
If the board has any issues, let me know right away, otherwise we can vote on them in block.
Right.
Yes, of course.
Good idea.
I'll try and just summarize quickly. So the DIS statement, we had asked for a waiver. We actually granted that waiver during the preliminary. We didn't submit a DIS.
That means a development impact statement,
Yep, sorry about that.
people in the audience.
Section 9C2, there should be no net increase in runoff allowed without creating a net increase or a runoff as to the volume. So we have a very minimal increase in the 2-year storm. It's based on mathematical modeling. DPW would have commented on that if they had an issue with it. It's a very small increase, so technically we need a waiver on that. The plan drainage design shall demonstrate no increase in runoff or flooding to adjacent streets, so it's kind of like the same thing said in a different section. So same waiver there, minimal increase. No more than 20% of the area under any deciduous trees, natural drip line may be paved. So due to the parking and making sure we have enough parking, not taking any parking away, there are going to be parking underneath some of the trees in that drip line. So we're asking for a waiver on that. Streetlights are required and installation should be coordinated with National Grid. As mentioned, we put in light posts at the end of each driveway in lieu of that, so we're happy to do with whatever, so if we end up going to streetlights, that waiver goes away. And we would
So
do street-
the comment on that is if we get rid of the streetlights, okay, one of the requests that I make is that those lights to be solar, that they turn on and off, rather than turn them on, they're on all the time.
Right, it's like a typical streetlight, so it
Yeah,
would be,
yeah,
yeah, it'd be on a
right.
solar cell, where it's, a photo cell, I should say.
Photo cell, that's what I get the right word.
So you're saying each house will have its own,
Each house, the way we
but
proposed this
controlled by
was.
them, though? They can keep
Controlled
their
by
own-
them, right,
So-
so
So
if
they
that's
could-
not
They
what.
could turn them off.
They could.
Yeah,
Yep, they could.
so
So if-
we need streetlights, okay.
Yeah, so very well, so those lights could go away, and they could put them in if they want or not.
Yeah.
And then we just go to straight streetlights, coordinating with
Yeah.
National Grid
How many
and probably the
streetlights?
wiring department. So usually, You have them every 150 feet apart, something like that.
How long is that?
So this road,
It's not longer
Yeah,
than
like
5
four.
800,
Like a 4,
800 feet maybe?
Probably 4, 5.
It's more than 5, because he's asking for a
and
waiver.
there isn't anything there now?
Correct, there's no lettings,
No way.
no lighting at all.
So we're requiring, so,
Yep, so you could require to have streetlights put in, so that waiver would go away. If we had that would just be, I think, again, the important part is coordination with the softball folks, because it's gonna be, which side of the street we put it in, just to put it all on our side of the street, just have an easement on ours to cover the sidewalk. If we
Right.
put it on this side of the street, it could impact where people are parking, so I think
yeah,
it's,
definitely.
but I think it's gonna be
But,
important to,
Why I'm getting to that is something there in the writing, in either the homeowners or the plan, is that with the photo cells, the place where I go to in the winter in Florida, they don't have photo cells. So some of the lights are on 24 hours, they never shut them off.
we also can have on timers.
Yeah.
Where
Some, but they
9
would,
o'clock, they all go on.
yeah, but with daylight savings,
Yep.
it changes, so that way if you put photo cells, they would be, it works, so you
Easier
make
just to
that.
do the streetlights, John, and
Huh?
keep the police happy and
Well, that's,
give
that's,
them the
that's
lighting
the
we
alternative,
needed.
that's the alternative, street lights.
Right, I think it's,
Or,
the impression
I
I'm
think it's
getting,
easier.
the police department mentioned it in their
Well,
comments.
he's just looking for the waiver so then they can make a
Right.
decision when they
Yeah.
get the house
Yeah.
done.
So if we end up doing streetlights, I think it has to be per city standard.
Yeah.
Working with the wire
That's it.
inspector
Right.
and his department and
Yeah.
do what's
That would
required.
be-
We just wanted to address.
So that one probably might end up going away, so you can circle back
Right.
through your discussions on that one.
Yep.
Dead-end streets should not be longer than 500 feet. The existing Bassett Street is longer than 500 feet, so it's existing. Dead-end streets shall be provided at the end of the turnaround, having a diameter of 100 feet, and 120 feet of paving the property line. So again, existing Bassett Street, we're not putting in a cul-de-sac. Minimum centerline radii of curved streets should not be less than 150 feet. Existing Bassett Street, as you come around this corner, is less than 150 feet.
We already granted that.
Asking for a waiver for that.
Yeah, we granted.
Again, right, as I was mentioned during the preliminary, and that was already granted. Centerline roadway shall coincide with the right-of-way. It doesn't, that was previously granted during the preliminary subdivision. Width of street right-of-way should not be less than the requirements. Where it's existing, it's less than that. That was also previously granted during the preliminary.
Yeah.
Sewer, water, telephone, gas shall be installed to the lot line prior to surfacing the road. So this is an odd one, Bassett Street's already paved, so it's already paved, so we can't meet that requirement.
Yeah.
So it's already paved. Curbing shall be installed along the edge of the roadway in all streets. So on this one, we're not proposing any curbing on the west side, because that would be an impact to how people are parking for the softball complex. So we're asking a waiver for that. On our side, absolutely, there's curbing up against the sidewalk. So it's just that softball side, we don't want to impact them any further. So we ask for a waiver on the curbing for that. Grass strips should be provided on each side of the roadway. Due to the existing Bassett Street layout being smaller than typical and trying to accommodate the parking, there's no grass strips. So we're asking for a waiver on that. Location of water main shall conform to the typical street cross-section. And so due to some conflict with existing utilities, we can't meet that specifically 10-foot horizontal separation to a sewer line. It's not an issue engineering-wise. Usually just have a vertical separation instead, so that's not uncommon, but we,
And
due to existing
DPW
Bassett
didn't
Street, we
mention
couldn't.
anything, Anthony.
What's that?
DPW didn't mention
Nope.
anything on that.
So we should be all set there. Again, talks about the runoff rates and volumes not being increased, there's a minimal increase in the 2-year storm, so it's just another reiteration of the couple waivers before. Next one, Portland cement, concrete, or masonry head walls shall be constructed at the ends of any pipes. And so we're just having flared ends dumping into our detention basins. We don't need head walls, we don't need to build walls. We have slopes into that. So again, DPW had no comments, so it's more fine there. Method of runoff for piping, it says to use the rationale method for the 25-year storm. We typically, which is common practice, use a HydroCAD model as a software that's typically used. And we also size it for the 25-year storm in lieu of the rationale method. So it's a common other engineering method to do it. And again, DPW didn't comment on that. And they've accepted that model before. Those are the waivers.
I move to close the hearing.
Sorry.
I have a very quick question. So there's a gas line that's going in on Bassett, is that right?
No.
No, okay.
I mean, it's not, as part of it, if, I don't think there's a gas, is there a gas line?
There isn't one now.
There isn't one now. I don't believe there's an intent to bring one in unless National Grid wants to do it.
Yeah, that's usually typical National Grid. They wait till you build the road, then they put it in.
Okay, so unfortunately, a lot of
They don't repave over it.
unfortunately, a lot of the new code, a lot of those fuel sources are becoming more obsolete.
You've got a motion.
Maybe we'll make a comment that you contact National Grid in advance and let them know if they want to run their the sewer line and the gas line. Okay.
There's a motion.
Motion to close the hearing. To close the hearing. Do we have any further discussion? Here now, call for the vote. All in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good job.
6:39. We're gonna vote on it later.
Yeah, we've got, my agenda. Buried. Do we have a 6:30 hearing? 6:35 rather.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, have John read it.
I've got to read it. 6, to open public meeting for a site plan application, 86 Orchard Hill Park Drive, map 386, Lot 6, Lot 1, multifamily residential development. Okay, we get started. Or you want to put that down? Off to the side.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Good evening, for the record, Matt Pompesi with Bowler Engineering, the civil engineers for the project. Here are a few different folks. I have Jim Lambert, David Moore, and Elisa from Wood Partners, who's the applicant, and Sean Chappell, the traffic consultant for the traffic of the project. And we're here for a site plan review application for 308-unit multifamily residential development at 86 Orchard Park Drive. Before we jump into the details, just give a little background on the application.
Good evening, Jim Lambert, Managing Director and Partner at Wood Partners. The applicant, just wanted to briefly talk about our company a little bit. Wood Partners is a national real estate development firm focused on multifamily apartments, ground up construction mainly. We really don't do anything else. We're not, other than some limited mixed use, we're solely focused on building multifamily for rent apartments across the country. We're based in Atlanta. We are one of the top 5 developers in terms of the number of units started across the country in any given year, just to kind of give some context on scale. We've been operating in Massachusetts and New England since about 2010. In that period of time, we have built over 4,000 units of housing across the state, all the way from, as close in as Somerville and Cambridge to as far out, as Worcester now, and we've expanded to New Hampshire and Rhode Island. So we're very experienced in developing this product type in the local area. All of our folks on the development team and the construction team are all local to Massachusetts and have been in this market for many, many years. We can skip that. Kind of a little bit more about us nationally. So again, some big numbers. I won't go through everything on the slide, but we've developed hundreds of thousands of units over the years. I'm sorry, 7,000 units. That's a bunch. We're one of the biggest in what we do. We're a private company, so our name's maybe not quite out there like some of the public REITs, but very large in the space. I think one point that I'd like to make to folks on board is that we're not only a development company, but we're also a construction company as well, so we build our own projects. And that's important, I think, for municipalities to understand, because there's one point of contact. There's none of this with a third-party GC. We're involved from day one, from planning, from this stage here in the permitting, through the construction drawings, with our pre-construction team overseeing that process, throughout in the field with our project managers and superintendents overseeing the construction projects. So, when there's an issue, you come to Wood Partners, you don't come to Wood and then we turn around and place blame on some third-party GC. So I always think that's important to point out to folks. But I think that's a good summary of us. Happy to answer any questions on who we are as a company, but projects like this, 300-unit multifamily ground-up development is our bread and butter. We do it day in and day out, both here locally and nationally, so it is our expertise.
Okay, thank you.
Just as we get started, Jim did provide just different projects in any areas worked with, so Marlboro.
So yeah, this slide represents specifically what we've done here locally over time since 2010. The grouping up above, the projects that have been completed all the way through, and the ones in the second section on the bottom are either in construction or in lease up right now. So you can see we've been all over the state, as well as now in Rhode Island and New Hampshire. But $1.5 billion worth of construction in terms of total project costs, all again ground up apartment buildings in this market. Yeah, I think that's the last one.
Yep, and just as we're getting started, we did pick a couple of select projects just because they have very similar architecture and construction type as was being proposed for this project. So this one being the one in Walpole, Mass, 4-story residential buildings. You can see the pool and clubhouse. This one's still under construction, but Londonderry, New Hampshire, some drone shots again. 3-story building, pretty similar to what's being proposed right here. And I think Fredericksburg, Virginia, again, similar construction type as was being proposed for this project with the clubhouse and the 4-story residential buildings. I'm sure everyone's very, very, very familiar with the site, which just as a quick background, it's the site just west of the existing Orchard Hill Park retail development. I think it's been contemplated for a while, but as of right now, it's undeveloped, bordered on the south by Harvard Street and into the north by, they recently constructed an extension of Orchard Hill Park Drive, which ends at a cul-de-sac up on the hill, and then to the north by the residential properties off of Harvard Street and Sky Lane. A bit of topo through the site, which I'll run through when we look at the layout, about 50 feet from the bottom to the top, which is how we came up with the building orientations. And in site layout, there's also some wetlands on the site. Those have been delineated and confirmed via what's called an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation with conservation, so those wetland areas are known. We are expecting to file with conservation currently with this application. The site's in the MU multi-use 2 district. The use is permitted by right. No waivers are being requested as part of this application as far as density or setbacks. Just to give a general scheme of the proposed development, there's 9 residential buildings proposed, kind of color-coded here in the yellows and browns. Sized to meet the building needs. Overall, 308 units are proposed, 154 one-bedroom, 136 two-bedroom, and 18 three-bedroom units. At the far south or the far left of the plan you'll see it's a clubhouse with a pool and a pool house, which will have amenities at the pool, outdoor recreational and gathering areas, as well as indoor gathering areas and fitness centers or other amenities for the residents of the property. Just to the plan south.
If I could, just, I'll point out, that building also will have on-site property management as well.
Thank you. Yep, just to the plan south of that or east of that is a mail room dedicated for the residents, so mail will be delivered there as well as any packages. There's 8 car garages, carports proposed to the dark brown buildings around the perimeter, each with 6 cars, and I think those will be available for lease for the residents of the development. As well as 2 fully screened trash enclosures, one at the far plan south of the development and one just to the right of the first building there on the plan left side of the building for solid waste disposal, which we handled privately by the applicant. We did submit building elevations with the project. Again, similar to the images that we shared earlier, there'll be a split between 3 and 4 stories. One side will be 3, the other 4. Again, that's because of the topography of the site. Just helps the project and development work with the topographical constraints. And just a quick perspective of the building. I think the pictures probably tell a little better story as far as being able to see it, but again, what the proposed buildings are anticipated to look like.
Yeah.
There we go. So parking 474 spaces are proposed, which is 3 more than the zoning requirement based on both just the zoning requirement as well as their extensive experience with these types of developments. That was the number they were looking for parking. 28 total ADA spaces are proposed, 88 spaces at every single residential building as well as at the clubhouse and at the mailroom. 20% of the spaces will be EV ready as required per the code, and they're going to elect to construct 24 day one EV stations for the residents, so there'll be 24 operational EV stations at the beginning, once it opens after construction. Pedestrian connectivity is provided throughout the site, so from the clubhouse all the way through and connecting to each residential building over the driveway connecting the 2 sides and then to each of those buildings on the other side. The sidewalk also connects out to the sidewalk constructed along Orchard Hill Park Drive extension. In addition, a gravel pedestrian path is proposed between this property and the Orchard Hill retail development, just in case folks want to go over there to use the retail or the bus stop or other amenities over there. Access is proposed via 2 driveway connections, one at Harvest Street and one at Orchard Hill Park Drive extension. We did meet with fire and police at the onset of the project, and they were happy to have the 2 fully open, dedicated spaces. We did run fire truck emergency ladder truck through the site and provide that as part of the plans just to show the fire truck can access all parts of the development. A monument sign would be proposed at each driveway connection, just a 8 by 6 or something along those lines at each driveway entrance, just to name the development and direct folks into it. As part of this project, we did prepare a traffic study, or Chapel Engineering did. Sean, do you want to give a quick?
Sure. Before you go away from that slide.
Yeah.
Where's your snow storage on this?
Oh, sure. It's not shown on here.
Doesn't look like there's a lot of places.
Not a ton. It was one of the comments we got from staff part of the initial development review. So we're planning to provide a snow storage plan as we go through.
Yeah, and the tricky part in a complex like this that's self-contained is when it snows, people are gonna have to move out of their parking spots. You probably already don't have enough because our zoning ordinance is only 1.5 per unit, and most people are gonna have 2 cars in a 2-bedroom unit. So with snow, if you're already cutting out half the spots, or people move, so you can plow and then have to move back, you're gonna have a substantial place. And I'm not really sure where in that layout that's gonna work. Just a,
Plan to truck it out.
well, but even then, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
It's just something to think about as it's
Yeah.
presently constructed.
While we're talking about parking in that area, so, you know, where you have the parking, you have it at the minimum, okay? There's no comment, but I see two areas. One is visitors, where do visitors go? You know, you get them parking into the neighbor's yard, and you're gonna cause problems. So there should be, in different areas, maybe, I don't know what the number is, maybe it's 8 or 10 or something like
The
that.
visitor thing usually isn't as much of an issue, because not everybody's home at the same time. So there's usually places for those.
But there should be some, okay, and there's nothing today. And the other thing is, I was looking at, how many parking places do you have at the clubhouse?
I believe approximately 10 or so.
And 10, you know, 10 or 12 people is for 300 units. And how many people do you expect to be using the facility? Now, guaranteed, you know, most of them will show up there.
Or you walk.
A lot of people walk.
It's a long walk from the top of the.
But from this end, all the way, if it was in the middle, I'd say, but all the way to the full length, they'll get their physical fitness getting to the clubhouse.
They're too tired to swim.
Yeah. So,
I mean, you're also, they're only required 471 and they're proposing 474. I mean, we can't make them put in more parking
I
than
don't
we
think
have
any of
to.
that's an issue except with snow.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a major issue.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, the snow's gonna take
yeah,
up spaces.
it's a concern that we have, okay?
It'll be their major issue.
Yeah.
Because they're the management.
Right, but it will, and snow will take up spaces for a month at a time.
But you do need some visitor parking.
More.
Yeah, but you-
But they're only required, I mean, unless they're lying to us on the parking table, they're
You're
required
right.
471.
Right.
And they're
Right.
offering
That's
474.
gonna be covered.
I realize
That's
that.
15 plus another 8 across, yeah, it's more like 25.
Yeah, it's
There's three visitors.
and revisit, that's what we're looking at, okay?
Just to be smart, you would want to put some extra parking in there, whether it's required or not.
We're just
Well, but
trying
but we can't make them do that.
I didn't say.
I realize, I
I'm just saying
understand, but
it would
if they can work it
It would
in,
be better for them.
okay? The other thing that I'm seeing, and it's not, we don't require it, but I've seen it where I live now, you know, a lot of people are using golf carts, okay,
Not in
within
Not
the
in
unit.
Florida, John.
Not here.
Not a
Not yet.
Oh, yeah,
I've
through the
never
bushes.
seen one on the road in Leominster.
Well, they can't go on the road, but they can be within the park,
Well,
okay?
let's not even go there.
And that's
Let's
just
say
an
some extra space
optional
would be
nice
nice.
that you might think of, okay? We're just, these are not required, I know they're not required,
Yeah.
but that takes some of the pressure off of.
If I may, so understood the comments on the parking, you know, in all the projects that we've done in the last, I don't know, couple of years, handful of years, what we found actually is that parking has been underutilized. I know that it's hard to believe, but it really is the reality. I mean, people certainly are gonna have cars, but, you know, the days I think of, you know, everybody having two automatically is really not the reality. We have just seen that over and over again. People are using Ubers, they're working from home more, they're sharing cars. And that's just what we've seen from building these projects, you know, a lot more recently. So 1.5 is about where we're at, and that's what we've seen to be, you know, more than comfortable. The snow comments are you know, well advised, and we'll certainly look at that. But there was a comment, I'm not sure if it was yours as well, about, you know, just when people are there and when they're not. You know, people, with today's work environment, it's, you know, it's not everybody leaving at 8 o'clock anymore and getting home at 6. It's all about, you know, there's third shift, there's work from home. It's very, there's a variety of exit and entry all through the day in these projects now. We just don't see major issues with parking anymore.
Well, and the issue is not that there's not enough parking. For people, it's not convenient parking. That's what the issue is. There's always plenty of parking, but people want the spot closest to their door.
They want to next door, yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
anyway, the snow storage was where
We're back to traffic.
yeah, so go back to your presentation before we go off topic.
Good evening, Chairman Suzanne, members of the board. Again, for
Thank
the
you.
record, Sean Kelly with Chapel Engineering. On behalf of the team, thank you again for having us tonight. What I'd like to do, if it pleases the board, is just take a few minutes to walk through our traffic study, how we conducted it, what our findings were. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. So I think Matt did a great job describing the site, but again, just to orient ourselves, the site is located to the west of the existing Orchard Hill Shopping Center. And as pointed out, there would be two access points, one onto Harvard Street and then one onto Orchard Hill Park Drive. We conducted our study in accordance with all state and industry guidelines. The first thing that we did is we went out and collected existing data to get a handle on current traffic conditions. We studied the 8 locations that we felt will accommodate the majority of project-related traffic. That would be the 2 driveways, and then working from, I guess, north to east, we looked at Harvard Street at White Street, Harvard Street at the Orchard Hill Park Drive, which is under traffic signal control, Harvard Street at the on-ramp to Route 2 westbound, which also gets you to the Leominster Connector and I-90, Harvard Street at the Route 2 westbound off-ramps, Harvard Street at Mechanic Street and Old Union Turnpike, and then Old Union Turnpike got the on-ramps to Route 2 eastbound and off-ramp to eastbound as well. We went out and did counts. We did counts in the morning, 7 to 9, and in the evening, 4 to 6, and the reason we drilled down on these hours is these are typically the hours when residential traffic is highest and commuter flows are heaviest, so it represents kind of a worst-case scenario. In conjunction with the initial existing assessment, we also looked at crash data. Really weren't any high crash locations in this area, but I will note that there was some discussions with the police department about safety on Harvard Street north of the site. We looked at vehicle speeds. On Orchard Hill Park Drive, the speeds in the vicinity of our access are pretty close to in line with the speed limit, likely due to the fact that the curvature of the road really regulates speed there as you have to slow down coming around the bend. On Harvard Street, the cars were going a little faster than the speed limit. It's a 30-mile-an-hour road. The 85th percentile speed, which we utilized, was closer to 40 miles an hour. And as such, we've used that higher speed for design purposes. So that's kind of a snapshot of today. As far as the project itself, we utilize data that's published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or the ITE. The ITE publishes trip generation data for a whole host of land use codes, and for this particular project, the applicable land use code is what's known as Land Use Code 221, multifamily housing mid-rise, not close to rail transit, so there's no deduction for public transportation usage. And what the data tells us is that during the busiest hour of traffic in the morning and at night, between 7 and 9 and 4 to 6, this project will generate about 120 trips. In the morning, as you can see, the bulk of that traffic is outbound, people going to work, and then in the evening, it's more oriented inbound, people coming home from work. I get this question every time I do a residential project, so I just cut it off the pass, but people often ask, how are these numbers even remotely accurate? You've got 300 units and 120 trips, doesn't everybody work? And it's important to note that this is just the busiest 1 hour. So that 124 may occur between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning. That's not to say other people aren't commuting between 6 and 7:30, and then afterwards, if you work in retail, you may work later. You may have a job, work for the fire department where you don't even go in during commuter hours. So, but during that one busy hour in the morning and evening, that's what you're looking at, is about 120 trips, so about 2 cars a minute. We look at U.S. Census data to get a handle as to where these cars are coming and going based on commuter patterns from the city of Leominster for residents. And the bulk of this traffic, and this is one of the really, I guess, the benefits of this project, but the bulk of it is heading, one of a couple of access points. They're either jumping on Route 2 westbound, if they work in the city, to get off at the Leominster Connector, or if they're heading to Worcester, they get on I-190, or they're getting on Route 2 eastbound and they're getting on the highway at Old Union Turnpike. But as far as the impacts of the traffic to the city in general, you're not going to have a lot of impact to the downtown area, to other residential areas. It's really primarily focused between the site itself and then the primary corridors, which is Route 2, the connector, and 190. In terms of the conclusions, again, I won't spend too much time, but again, the project is expected to generate about 2 trips a minute during the busiest hours. We've looked at the parking supply issue as well. The ITE, in addition to generating trip generation data, also has parking demand data, and that data also indicates that the supply is sufficient. Again, no safety deficiencies were identified. The sight lines at the driveway locations exceed the minimum requirements, following the clearing of vegetation. Again, 70% of the traffic really is going to be getting right on the highway or heading into downtown. It's not, into the neighborhood areas adjacent. Generally, no impact to traffic operations. We've put a particular focus on the traffic light at Harvard Street and Orchard Hill Drive to make sure that there's no need to do any, retiming or rephasing of that signal. And the signal, as it's designed and operates today, can accommodate the traffic that the project will generate. We recommend that all signs and pavement markings are installed in accordance with what we call METCD. It's the manual and uniform traffic control devices, the appropriate stop lines, center lines, stop bars, and certainly any pedestrian accommodations to ADA requirements. And then really the only recommendation we have in terms of restricting access is it was brought to our attention from the police department that they have been concerned with safety and maybe crashes or speeding on Harvard Street north of the project. So the site's been designed to restrict vehicles from exiting onto Harvard Street and making a right towards a residential neighborhood. It'll be marked in signs that you have to go left back down towards Route 2. And that's kind of our study in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions that members of the board or audience might have.
Okay.
Thank you.
The police department suggested that we have an independent traffic review.
Sure.
What do you feel about that?
Oh, absolutely. No issue with that.
So I'd like to recommend that as a condition.
I think most of the traffic's gonna go out to Harvard Street. I presume they're not gonna go
Yeah.
towards the
Orchard Hills.
Orchard Hill Park.
Yeah,
There's not that much traffic that goes towards Lunenburg.
No, unless you head, I think, unless you're going Lunenburg, Shirley, or
Right.
Air, those routes, I think that's pretty much what we're stuck out the back door, but most of it comes up Harvard and makes that left.
I think you're gonna have a lot of people going right on.
I think it also go by,
To 15, up towards New Hampshire, I mean, that intersection at Harvard and Prospect Street, it could get,
I live right on that corner.
we all, I would.
well, plus you have the access, like, I'm just thinking about some.
Not that you say it, is that, it's a local, because there's a lot of traffic.
Well,
that
2A,
goes
No,
right
understood.
there.
And we certainly want to minimize that impact, and that's why we're going to have signage and pavement markings to direct traffic to make the left.
Because once
not
you
to
go by
that way.
Keating, did you see Keating there on 2A? You can take the next right-hand turn to get over to Route 2 as well, further down
Right,
without.
at the roundabout, yep,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about traffic, I love the fact that you put a walking path in between the two sites.
Yeah.
That's good. That would reduce car traffic between the two sites, because a lot of people are gonna be going to Target to get groceries or making quick trips to this site. And if you guys are willing to consider it, I would love to see a couple more walking paths if the landscape works there, so that these guys, people who live at these other two clusters will be able to get over to the Orchard Hills shopping section.
It's certainly something we could look at. One thing that doesn't show up readily apparent on this plan is there's quite a bit of topography. If you look behind the Target, there's like, I don't know how tall that wall is, but it's very tall behind the
Yeah.
Target.
Yeah, that's all wet back there.
You're not going to pass that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot of driving in between otherwise. And these are folks that live there might consider walking.
Yeah, we'll certainly take a look.
Good idea.
You don't wanna put a road there.
Well, if you carry groceries, you gotta take a car, you're not gonna.
But if you grab a gallon of milk, maybe you're not.
Yeah, no, that's even kinda heavy for us old guys. Oh, jeez. We don't drink that.
Okay.
Right, team?
So just overall site layout, just some things that we took into consideration as we're laying it out. As I mentioned before, all the units are split between 3 and 4 stories, so the topography on the site goes from the southwest side is the highest, and it comes down on the left side of the plane down to the wetlands, and from the north to the south on the right side. So each of those buildings has a 4-story side on the low side and a 3-story side, and that just helps us mitigate the topography through the site. 188 trees are proposed throughout this site, including 38 shade trees and 20 ornamental trees. This was a zoning requirement, also something we heard as part of initial discussions throughout the site, so a pretty significant amount of landscaping throughout the site. In addition, these will be fully designed for all buildings, part of the building permit process, but we provide prototypical plantings around the buildings themselves, so extensive shrub plantings and ground cover plantings around the perimeter of the building to help dress up the facade and hide any HVAC units, as well as the clubhouses and mailrooms. What's that? I'm not going to go. Another item we looked at is just potential impacts to the residences to the north. So a few different design elements we did for that. First of all, topography. The one thing we did have going for us was topography, and we could design the site a little lower. So along that western corner around the abutting the residences, the site itself and all the driveways are about 5 or more feet lower than the abutting property. So any headlights or car impacts to be reduced via that elevation change. In addition to the existing wooded area that are on the abutting properties, we try to maintain existing vegetation on the site to the extent possible, so 10 to 15 feet around the perimeter to where we could, along with the shade trees. Additionally, where we could, we wanted to place the garages in locations that made sense. The garages don't have any lights on the back. They do block any traffic, so right in line with the drive aisles where we could, so lined up with the drive aisles between those buildings on the left side of the plan, as well as the one coming along the top of the plan, just where we could block that viewport or any lights that may be shining off the property. For lighting, all dark sky compliant, fully shielded castaway lighting. The light poles are 16 feet high. We did provide a photometric plan with the set, but 0.0 foot candles on all abutting properties around the perimeter. Water and sewer, there's an existing water main along the north side of the property, kind of near Orchard Hill Park Drive extension, which we're proposing to connect to, as well as Harvest Street, so there'll be a looped connection between those two. Sewer, there is sewer, again, in that same easement along the north side, as well as in the retail development itself, so we're proposing to connect at those two locations. There'll be an on-site pump station to collect just the units that can't get there via gravity. That'll be a private pump station and operated privately by the applicant.
The station is going to be where?
It's going to be just to the left of the connection between the two sites. There's a few buildings, those buildings right at that location that can't get to either location via gravity.
Just briefly, I love the idea of the covered garages. Where you have them may be super convenient locations to push some of that snow that we were talking about earlier. So I don't know if maybe thinking about that and just moving them around and maybe mitigating the light pollution that'd be coming from the cars with some kind of fencing instead. Just saying, you know, I mean, that one right at the end of that corridor is inconvenient for a plow guy, I can tell you that right now. Just saying, you know what I mean? Something to think about.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to truck them off.
Well, sure.
Yeah, you're gonna have a plan to truck it off too, as part of your site plan, I'm sure.
Yeah, that,
Some years
as you get further west, you get more snow.
I'll briefly touch on storm. We did submit a drainage report as part of the application. Treatment measures include deep sunk-footed catch basins, a couple bioretention areas for treatment, hydrodynamic price separators to feed to subsurface concrete fault retention basins, as well as a surface infiltration basin. Overall, 110,000 cubic feet of basin storage, so quite a bit of basin storage to mitigate the drainage area. I'm happy to get into that in more detail because it's what we do, but most people's eyelids get heavy when I get into it in too much detail, so I'll refrain unless asked. Construction's anticipated to occur over 19.5 months. I think it'll be one phase, more or less. They're not gonna do one side and the other. It'll be all together. Perimeter erosion controls are proposed as part of our plans. In addition, we will be filing with EPA for construction general permit, which will include preparation of a stormwater pollution prevention plan, on-site monitoring, inspections, and further detailing on erosion controls. We did receive initial department comments in the planning director's report prior to this hearing. We didn't update the plans, but we did respond via a quick response letter. I think in general, we were more or less amenable to all the comments to update it as we go along. A couple of the highlights that I'll hit is Mr. Wise already pointed out, a traffic peer review was requested by engineering and police. I think the applicant noted they were amenable to that, as well as a drainage report. The drainage peer review was requested by engineering again. We're amenable if the board would like that. There is wetlands on the site. We're filing a notice of intent with conservation concurrently with this. We'd like to be filing that later this week, just doing that process concurrently. Fire and police emergency communications, it was noted this area is known to have less than stellar communications, so fire asked for, at a minimum, bi-directional amplifiers, and I know the applicant's spoken to fire, and if there's anything more they can do, they'll certainly be willing to do it if it can work with the project. Security, all the buildings will be private entry, so that the fob key entry system for all the buildings. There's some questions about trash removal and bulk items, and I know there'll be a pretty thorough plan if they get into the building permit as far as how those things are handled. And there was a question about, there's an old stone marker out there, we're looking at where we may be able to relocate that too.
And you have that concrete pad and fenced-in dumpster?
Yep, it'll be a 6-foot-high concrete block wall enclosure, yep.
So you talked,
With the amount,
Stone Mark, have you talked to the historical commission on that yet?
We haven't talked to them specifically on it yet, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they found it brave.
Yeah, correct. Not here.
What size dumpsters are you thinking?
They're large, they have a couple dumpsters, offhand, how large they are.
We generally have, I think it's about 12 to 15, it depends on the size, but there's compactor that everything goes in for trash as well as a recycling within that trash enclosure, so.
And so there's a question, with 300 units and only two dumpsters, do you have that sufficient?
Because the two dumpsters are two dumpster locations.
Two locations, with a compact.
Locations, with a compact.
Generally, we do the 5 to 6 years per year.
Because that was a DPW concern.
That's what I was just saying. Okay. All good?
Okay.
So we have to do conditions for the traffic study and the drainage study.
They also wanted an engineering study too.
Engineering study, yeah.
And traffic study.
Traffic and drainage.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll get this, we'll open up the audience.
And snowstorage. Was there anything else besides those? Traffic study, drainage study, information on snow storage, and
On the way out on the bioretention area.
I think that's it at this time.
At this time, yeah.
and so you know what you'll need to work on in that regard.
Okay. Okay, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Nothing on my end. Yeah, people
Okay.
can finish.
I'll open it to the audience. Do I have anyone here in the audience that has any comments? I'll ask again, do I have anyone in the audience?
I move to continue the hearing then,
Okay.
so that you can come back.
Well, we
with
gotta have-
information to schedule the studies.
Right, well, we're looking for, we request from the police department, and on a peer
Traffic and
review
drainage.
on the traffic study. Also, we'll be looking for an engineering review of the site. And of course, the plan on the snow storage that we're concerned about.
Are we gonna vote at this at the end of the meeting, or just?
Well, we're gonna continue this.
We'll continue the
Okay.
hearing, then we'll vote.
Yeah, we'll continue this, so we'll bring those things forward.
Okay, so the summer meeting schedules haven't been planned yet, but we usually have one in July, so I was proposing 7/21. Does anybody have any issues with 7/21?
7/21, okay.
Because the next meeting is gonna be, 6/2 is too soon for all the traffic. 6/16 is even a little too soon, and that's when all
That's
of
the
the racetrack. So the next one after that is July 21st.
So I would move to continue it
At
till 6:30 on
6:31.
July, 6:31 on July.
Yeah, we have Pleasant Street that day.
On July 21st.
Second.
Yeah, I would just, is it not, it's not possible to be in the mid-June hearing?
We have one that's gonna be.
Unless you want to be heard at about 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, but
And I'm not
Get on.
I'll tell you right up front, on the old dump, they're planning, they want to, there's a recommendation for a horse track.
Oh, yeah, I've seen
At
it.
fairgrounds.
Let's say fairgrounds.
I was at fairgrounds. So we're anticipating to be realistic, a very active meeting that evening.
It's gonna be nuts.
It won't be in here.
Well, can we not talk about it anymore?
Yeah.
And I would like to think that would be plenty of time for all the independent reviews to be back.
On average, it takes about 6 weeks
We'll be pushing it for June.
to go through the whole process. So I think that's a good estimate.
All right, you've got a motion.
And Stephanie, I think this is probably pretty common practice, but we will be filing with conservation at the same time. I assume you guys share the same.
Right, yeah, right, concurrent with the conservation. Exactly.
Got a motion?
Okay, I have a motion made and second on the floor to continue this meeting until June.
July 21st at
So
6:30.
July 21st?
Yep.
Okay, at 6:30.
6:31.
And with the recommended conditions.
What's on at 6:30?
Pleasant Street, Philippine.
So what time is that?
6:30. So 6:31.
6:30.
So is it now the appropriate time to make the motions for the independent reviews, or do we need to do that?
No, you're
We
good.
do that at the, well, you can do it now, yes.
Yeah, we
I
can
see
do
no
that
issue
now.
with that, yes.
Okay.
So I do want to say for the peer reviews of traffic and drainage, we'll have to take them separately, but the traffic, we go through Vanessa and Associates, that's who we use for that peer review. If the estimate's over $10,000, then we'll reach out and get 3 bids, and I'll go with the lowest bidder. It then has to be reviewed by the purchasing agent, and if the purchasing agent has issues with the contract that the peer reviewer does not agree with, then I would ask the board to give me authority to go along with the next bidder as to not delay the process.
Yes.
So moved. So moved.
This
So
was
that was
traffic.
for traffic.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is to do that.
Like you said.
That's the motion.
Well, primarily, the way it's written today is if we don't go to the lowest bidder for one reason or another, or they don't accept it, then we have to come back and re-vote it. So this just saves us from doing that. We just go to the next bidder. Right.
Let's vote.
Okay.
But we're just voting on traffic.
So traffic's good.
Traffic, all in favor of the traffic study?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Now, the second one they're asking for is, well, it's engineering firm to review site plans and drainage report.
Yep, so
Okay.
drainage would be the same, except we wouldn't go with Vanessa, we'd be going with three, reaching out to multiple people and going with three bids. And then go with the lowest one.
And you have the authority to
Yes.
Yeah, we just did
follow.
that.
Same motion.
Same. Second.
Okay, so I have a motion made and seconded for the engineering report. Okay, review. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Good.
Just those two?
No, and then they're gonna work on the snow storage.
Oh, yeah.
I'll put all that
The snow-
detail in a continuance letter
Yeah.
for you anyway.
I wrote down all the comments from all the board members, so
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And the last one, well, the snow storage, we
You don't need a
don't,
motion for that.
we don't need a motion for that. That's in general comments.
Thank you.
And you
Okay?
have all the other stuff from the department heads, so.
So a motion is made, is in order to continue to July 21st at 6:30. 6:31 rather, 6:31, with the with the conditions. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
A lot of work.
Oh. Tell me about it. Harvard Street, Detroit. We've got to do something otherwise. This is that one next year.
All right. Okay. Sean, do you want me to read it?
Yeah, you want to read that?
All right.
Carol's gonna help me on this one.
Well, do we need Paul here by the time? I'll just wait.
Just wait for Paul.
That's the previous meeting.
No,
It'll take a second.
no.
He's gotta be here for that.
Yeah, Paul doesn't have to be
He
here.
doesn't have, for what, to start, for me to start reading?
To
So
read
we're
it,
gonna open
no.
up the 6:40 public hearing for City Council Petition 41-25, Lisa Nugent of 45 Beth Avenue, Leominster. Request that the City Council prohibit all horse and dog racing and any associate betting or wagering anywhere within Leominster, Massachusetts by the following. Amend Article 1, Section 22-4 definitions by adding the following definition. Racetrack, any tract of land where horses or dogs are raced and where any form of betting or wagering on the speed or ability of horses or dogs are permitted or conducted. Amend Article 3, Section 22-17, underlying district table of uses under business uses to add racetrack as a listed use and to add the letter N for not allowed in every column for each and every district. Amend Article 3, Section 22-18, overlay district table of uses under business uses to add racetrack as a listed use and to add the letter U for underlying district in each and every column for each and every overlay district. The purpose of this zoning amendment is to prohibit commercial horse and dog racing anywhere within the city of Leominster.
Okay. That is the, at this point, I will open this petition, and we will continue it without any discussion.
Can I
Okay.
make one comment though?
Oh,
Just so everybody knows, I'm the butter of this project. My commercial building's across the street from it. So I don't think it necessarily
Wanna
means I can't
recuse
vote
yourself?
on it. I don't know if I have to, but I just want the board and everybody else to know that
Okay, don't give us,
I'm gonna butter.
we can check
We'll
with
talk
the,
after.
Yeah.
we can check with the
With the
ethics.
city solicitor.
Yeah.
Thanks for the transparency.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think so. If he thinks he can be,
He thinks he can be non-partial.
But we're gonna, I think, I want an opinion
I
from
don't
the
even have an
ethics
opinion on it.
commission.
Yeah,
Whether
yeah.
it's-
Yeah, so we'll get that tested.
He would need to follow up with that.
I think
What's
as long
that?
as he,
Oh,
I think as long as he discloses it.
Yeah, I don't think there's an issue.
Okay,
I'll confirm to you.
so a motion
You're not
is,
an investor, there's no financial.
motion is ordered to continue,
Yeah, well,
to continue this hearing
Property.
to
I'm not.
June the 16th,
Yes, June 16th, what time?
6:30.
6:30.
4725 is at 6:31, we already scheduled that, so
Okay.
6:30.
So 6:30, so
So move.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Regular meeting, call to order.
Pat Furlow.
Here.
Paul Weiser.
Here.
Salvatore Chaconi.
Here.
Carol Vittorioso.
Here.
John Souza.
Yeah,
Tom Kerrigan.
Here.
Jason Parre.
Here.
Dean Valier.
Here.
okay, minutes of previous meetings, April 7th.
Make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
I have a motion made and second to approve April 7th, 2025 as written. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Plan submitted, site plan application for 905 Miriam Avenue, map 261, parcel 3. Proposed Chick-fil-A restaurant
Finally.
with drive-through. But,
we don't put up there.
That comment doesn't mean we're approving it or
No,
denying
Well, somebody
it.
proposed
My
it.
God, you
he
guys
just
are
got
awful.
excited.
Wait,
So this is just a site plan, so we can put it on for 6/2 right now. On 6/2, we have 435 Lancaster Street for 6:30 and 6:31, and petition 4825 for Union Street at 6:35. So I'll recommend 6:40.
so moved.
6:30 on
Second.
6-2. I have motion made and seconded schedule for 6:02 and 6:40. Any additions, deletions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All say no, motion carries. Old business. Okay, none. News business, definitive subdivision for Bassett Street. Map 328, parcels 37, 41, 44, 48, 56, and 58.
Oh.
Yeah, let's get ready to do. John, you skipped the A and R.
It's not listed on our.
Oh, I forgot to pass out the revised.
It
wasn't on,
right. Yes, fair enough. So they can leave.
What did I do?
I'll read it
Oh,
out.
no, we don't have, oh, the A and R.
Yeah, I
Sorry
came
about
after
that.
the agenda
I've been
went
waiting
out.
patiently.
So it is, all right, there, that's it. Sorry, guys.
No, yeah, that's
Came
right.
this evening at the 11th hour.
16 Howard Terrace.
Yeah, no, I just want to be ready with
See?
No, that's all right. Thank you.
You can introduce yourself before.
So my name's Ian Hazelton from Hannigan Engineering. I'm here on behalf of Joshua Bernecki and Lucia Sullivan. So that's a 60 Hardwood Terrace. So what we propose is the creation of Lot 7B1, Parcel A and Parcel B. So Parcel A having an area of 6,376 square feet is to be considered not a buildable lot. It's to be conveyed and annexed with land of Brian and Vanessa Epro to form one undivided lot. Parcel B having an area of 11,278 square feet, also not to be considered a buildable lot, to be conveyed and annexed with land of Ronald and Robin Smith to form one undivided lot. As noted on the plan, the subject property is located in residential A district, requires that the lot shall have a minimum area of 21,780 square feet. So the proposed lot 7B1 will have 464,150, and the frontage will be approximately 118 feet, which adheres to the 80-foot frontage required.
I just want to make sure I understand. Parcel A, where's Parcel A going?
The corner lot.
Okay.
The adjacent.
And then B is going here.
Yep.
Okay.
And it meets all the requirements.
I move to endorse this.
Good.
I have a motion made and seconded to endorse the plan. Any discussion? Here none, vote for vote. All in favor, say aye.
We almost skipped over you.
Sorry,
Thanks for waiting. I know, thanks for waiting an hour.
Yeah.
2 hours.
Too bad we didn't have that on first, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, great job. Assuming that the landowners.
All right.
Okay. Okay, 5.2. 5.1, definitive subdivision application for Bassett Street. Map 328, parcels 37, 41, 44, 48, 56, and 58. And what is your wish, folks?
Well, I think, I would rather see streetlights there.
I would too.
And,
Then you don't have to worry about
them being on or off.
Sure.
Yeah. I just think it's
I
smart.
think that's always been a
According to
problem.
city standard,
Taking
you
the
know.
straight light one out, can we vote on the other 16?
Can you
as well?
deny
let's,
section
just make sure.
I think it's
9.2?
the only waiver that,
Well,
Yeah, and
will he withdraw it?
We'll withdraw 9.2.
the waiver for streetlights?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so this way we don't have to vote.
And then we can vote on the thing with all of the waivers.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
So
I
we'll
make,
have to vote on that thing.
well, I think we need to do those first, right, the waivers?
Yes.
So I make a
Right.
motion to, well, I make a motion to take them in one block,
Except for,
except for the one that's been waived, the streetlight.
Which is
So that's
section
on
9.q.
16 of them.
Second. So, yeah, so 16,
Well, you
one
just
being
have-
withdrawn.
Right.
Okay.
9.q.
I second that.
Well, let's define, the one being light, it's on,
It's
Which is-
9.q. Section 9.q.
okay, so we
Got it.
Oh, no.
vote on that.
Stephanie.
You got it in front of you?
I do, I have it right here. The gas, the gas, the bridge. Yep.
So he's withdrawn it, so I'm making, the applicant has withdrawn that, so I'm making a motion
To
to
accept.
take,
Yeah.
to just, we haven't even voted on the waivers, I'm making a motion to take all the waivers, the 16 out of 17, one being withdrawn in one block.
I
Make-
second that.
Before we do
You
that.
gotta define which one that is, on lighting,
It's
waiver on lighting.
9.q. And then you say that?
9.q, streetlights are required and installation should be coordinated with
Okay.
National Grid.
That's right, 9.q.
Okay, I-
9.q.
Okay. So motion is to delete 9-Q and to accept
As a
the
block.
balance of the waiver
As,
as a block.
yes, as a block.
Before we accept the rest of the block, can we get clarification on the waiver for curbing, 9R14G1?
Well, the hearing's closed, but unless.
Oh, well, you can.
Just, again, I just want to get clarification.
I can reiterate what I mentioned during the hearing.
They want a waiver to not have to do curbing, but they're committing to curbing.
One
side.
side, one
On
side.
one
On the
side.
house side, not
House
the
side.
ball side,
Right.
ball field.
Okay,
Is that what it
so the
means?
committee
Yes,
You
should,
wouldn't want them on the ball field side.
No, I.
Anyways, we're still gonna
No,
vote.
Anthony, I hear you. He, that was under the recreation
Yeah,
department,
we
and
can, I
comments,
can
right?
elaborate on that.
So,
that's not a
that's
waiver.
not a waiver.
Yeah.
No. So the only waiver we have is,
Was what with?
well, no, the one we're acting on is on the streetlights.
No, we're acting on taking him as a block, right?
Correct.
The
We're
one,
acting on all of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
All right,
the
so,
motion would be to accept the waivers with the exception, okay, of the
9Q,
waiver,
that
9Q.
was,
we've withdrawn that.
I thought we had to vote on whether we were gonna take it as a block.
I
We
know,
are
but
right
is
now.
Jason, you satisfied with the response? Yeah, he didn't, I don't think he is.
If the board is satisfied, I'm satisfied.
well,
Should we take a
Anthony,
vote on that?
just
So
clarification.
I'll read the actual
Yeah.
waiver request.
Yep.
Curbing
shall be.
shall be installed along the edge of each roadway in all streets. No curbing, so again, this is an existing street. No curbing exists nor proposed on the western side of Bassett Street. A sidewalk and granite curbing is proposed on the eastern side of Bassett Street,
On the house,
so, on the house side. So as I mentioned during the hearing,
on the sidewalk.
we purposely did not propose curbing
Right.
on the west side, because that will be another impact to the softball folks,
Um,
which we're trying not to impact.
And I
So-
get all that, but if we waive the requirement for curbing, period,
That's not where our request is.
No, that's not what he says.
Our request,
That's not on
our
his
plans
request.
show curbing on the east side.
Yeah.
Only on the west side is that.
Right.
See, it says right there, Jason, the sidewalk and granite curbing is proposed on the eastern
that's,
side.
that-
of
that's
Bassett
why I want to clarify.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm
Okay.
satisfied.
So Carol's motion to accept the waivers on a block
That's an extra 25 minutes.
And I
is a
second it.
motion. Okay,
And we have a
so
second.
all, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no, motion
Okay,
carries.
now I make a motion to accept the 16 out of 17 waivers excluding.
Second,
9.q.
second.
9.q,
And, Q.
which has been withdrawn.
Yes.
Got it?
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded to accept the waivers except for 9-Q. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no, motion carries.
Can we go, can we go over the conditions first before we?
Yes.
Yeah, I wrote down and circled all the conditions. You want me to go through one by
Yes.
one? And
Yes,
then if there's
please.
anything additional, you can add on.
Yeah.
So the first one is landscaping to coordinate species with the city, if that was necessary for you guys or not? Yes?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. The rec department, so they had the
Yes.
two comments. That was replace fencing on the fence from the third base dugout down the left field. Should be replaced for field 2 and 3.
So that's changed from the
That's
original
the request.
request.
They only had field one.
Yes.
Right,
No, so it,
Yeah, field 3.
it wasn't specific in the request.
right,
No, it's,
We thought they were talking about the big field.
right.
So clarification was, no, they wanted both, they call them fields 2 and 3. The two fields that are adjacent to Bassett Street.
There's a lot of foul balls in that field.
Right.
My
So
dog
we'll
played
make that
there.
as part of the condition.
You should hit it fair more often.
Yeah. Tommy never hit one straight. He practiced, you know, he
Well, I
played
didn't play
there
it
for
the last
years.
next.
The other one was 2 adjustable safety netting on fence to prevent balls from hitting homes for field 2 and 3.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. Do we need to, this one I wasn't sure on, do we need to accept their parking lot proposal prior to certificate of occupancy?
No, because they're parking that's,
Well, he actually did say that
He said he would.
we could condition that for occupancy.
So one of the things I was wondering, sorry not to interrupt, but I'll just mention, they had another comment about connecting public sewer to the
Right.
Vassily concession building.
Right,
We showed that on the plan.
that's right.
But you want me
So
to add
that's
it
the
to
I
the...
just want to bring that up to make sure that's.
I can
Yeah.
add it, yeah.
It's on the plans, but I want to make it clear so it's not forgotten.
Make it a condition.
It's right in
Well,
there.
yeah, I was gonna say that too, Anthony. Connecting public sewer to last league concession building, that's a condition.
Okay.
Is that on a
And then in
septic
regard
tank?
to parking, that's why we purposely submitted that parking plan, make it part of the project in the application. But if you want to be clear, you could condition the approval, the parking improvements should be done as submitted, on the plan as submitted. The only variation maybe is if we come back for site plan
but
approval.
wasn't there a question they had on the location of the batting cage? Did somebody want to keep it closer to the field and put on the other side?
I mean, it was brought up to me on the sidewalk, but it was not brought up tonight.
Yeah,
So,
Well, it would add more parking. if they-
it would have
yeah, so
added more.
we intend to move the
Right.
batting cages that helps them get more parking.
Right.
But couldn't you put a parking where the batting cages would be?
That's what I said.
Leave
No,
that?
no,
you
not
can't.
easily, no.
Okay.
The batting cages
A small-
impact parking, so just by moving them, it frees
Yeah.
up space.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, you could, condition, based on parking improvements, in
Right.
accordance with the plan that was submitted, barring any changes that might happen during site plan approval for that parking lot.
I'm going to say
So the
coordinated with the
parking
rec
plan should be
department.
done
Yeah,
as
that's all.
submitted?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we just coordinate with the rec department?
Yeah. Make it
Okay,
easy.
because it's on city property anyway, so why don't we just make it that way, and then whatever they
And whatever
decide.
it takes, it takes, yeah. it
So
works.
parking plan should be coordinated with
Right.
rec.
With the rec department.
Thompson's fence, but that's on the plan as well.
The Thompson thing. The other one, we decided that it really didn't.
They have enough of a buffer.
They have a 35
Is that
foot
it?
buffer, would
Yeah, no, that was, yeah, there's plenty of buffer, it's up higher.
The submitted drainage
will we return that
easements,
email?
to submit drainage easements of lots 1 and 2, lots
Oh,
7 and 8,
that was here.
for the
Oh,
planning
no, that's right.
board and DPW.
To review, yeah.
And Stephanie, can we send an email back to that woman that requested it? And just explain what we came up with as far as the buffer on that of the home?
I'll have to do that separately, and we'll have Stephanie
Well,
do
just
that
as housekeeping.
as a courtesy.
As a courtesy to that woman who sent an
She
email.
took the time to send the email, and had the concern, why not?
That's not part of the.
It's not a condition.
It's not a
Right,
condition.
Right.
It's just a courtesy.
Anything else for the motion?
Pre-construction meeting, so that the construction does not impact the softball operations, meeting with the applicant, rec department, Lassie League.
Right.
If I can elaborate more coordination throughout construction
Yeah,
with Lassie, but also, so rec department and Lassie, but also the property owner of 3 Bassett Street, the Thompsons. And
Right,
asked
okay.
to be
He had that
included in
concern.
Them being very close.
Yeah.
They should be included in that as well.
Like I said earlier, I think you've done an excellent job with the communication piece. Just keep it going, so there won't be those problems.
That's the intent.
It's better to cure it up front than to have it come back and bite you in the butt. So that was good. That was good, Anthony.
Condition to install streetlights.
That's been
That's
that's
It's
eliminated.
self-evident now that we've taken out.
Well, but
Oh,
now
with
we
the police,
should,
too.
we should make
Yeah,
it a
right.
condition for them to install.
It is, yeah.
It is a condition, so we're eliminating that condition.
No, we're not. We're just,
Well,
the police
no,
department
it's
requested
Eliminate
the
the
department.
waiver.
We're in the waiver, not the
Just
condition.
to be
Right,
clear,
right.
because the plans currently do not show streetlights. So I
Correct.
think the condition absolutely is
Yes.
appropriate to
Oh,
make
okay.
sure that that's right in there so it doesn't get missed.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think that's all I had, except for just the planning director inspects the conditions prior to the notice of occupancy.
That's it. Okay, motion to approve with conditions.
And
Have a
waivers.
motion to approve with
And waivers.
conditions. Do I have any further discussion?
And waivers.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you very much for your time.
Good job.
Sure, thanks, good job, Anthony.
Nice plan, nice work, Anthony.
And
You didn't even need Mr. Campabasso
Yeah.
tonight.
Well, that's
Kept
because,
him quiet over there.
that's because Mr. Campabasso did all the work.
Oh, that's right. Well, we already knew that, we just have to give him a little bit of
A
razz.
lot of cooks prepared this meal, so
No, it's all well done.
thank you.
Touchy with all this.
Anthony, I'll call you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you just reiterate what the email to the abutter was?
Well-
Exactly did you want me to?
Well, just
The
a
woman
note
sent
back
an
in.
email concerned about putting up a fence in the woods.
For security and,
Oh, to tell them what you decided and why?
We
Yeah,
decided that the
Yeah.
35-foot buffer.
well, they have a
Wooded
35
buffer
foot
Yeah.
wooden
enough.
section and they're up higher, so the lights won't bother them. You know, there should be a whole new safety outlet for them with those houses in there as well,
Yeah.
you know? Preventing a lot of the stuff that goes on now.
I'm sure they'll work it out.
But if you need help, Steph,
Okay.
You guys are keeping me busy.
Communication,
know that.
Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission.
5.3. Didn't we already?
Oh,
5.2's been continued.
Continued.
5.3
Been continued.
has been continued.
Yep.
6
So we're on 6.1. Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, MRPC, representative, vote to make an appointment for representative for July 1st.
I point Dean again.
You did a great job.
Oh, yeah.
I can't do it, I got commitment, I can't do it. Otherwise, I would say yes, but no.
Will you accept, Dean?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Dean.
In that case, we make a
And Jason, you got the
motion as an order to recommend Mr.
I
Valier to
make a
the,
motion to
Oh, you're on.
recommend Mr. Valier.
to the
Second.
Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission.
I think that has to be on twice, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
after the meeting, it'll be on the next two
Any
days. I'll get you the
discussion, all in
paperwork.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no?
No.
Motion
I
carries.
knew he was gonna. No.
Massachusetts Joint Transportation Committee, MJTC, representative.
Elizabeth is currently on that. Yep.
What's that?
Elizabeth is
That's
currently
good.
You can
at
make
that
another
position.
motion to have.
Right.
We'll make a motion for Elizabeth to be on it again.
So moved.
Motion made, it's recommended Elizabeth
Nice.
to be on the
It'll give us something to do.
MJTC. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no, motion carries. Earl Company Factory, Leominster.
Where the hell is that?
It's 34 Tremaine Street.
The old bus.
Johnny Tremaine?
Yeah, that's the old.
Oh, I thought
But that Johnny Tremaine.
They did, so I don't know why.
They never did it.
Maybe to get
some kind of grant
for historical.
Nominated to the National
It's done. It's built up. I think, yeah.
The old Buckley building.
Haven't been down
That
there
was
in a while.
approved.
Yeah, me either,
They
really.
never did it.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, Buckley, yeah.
Buckley's, yeah.
That was approved 2 or 3 years
So
ago.
anyway, historical place.
Now
So we just
nominated.
received a letter from the Massachusetts Historical
Yes.
Commission addressing the board, so I was just letting you know that they're being nominated.
Nominated, not-
It's just a nomination,
Not
and
selected.
the meeting will be on 1 o'clock on June 11th. If anybody is interested in attending that meeting, they can do so.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we don't need any action on that.
No action.
Summer meeting schedule, proposed summer meeting July 21st and August 10th, 2025.
August 18th?
August 18th.
That's the third Monday in each month?
Yes,
Third
to
Monday.
keep it right in the middle. Does anybody have
okay,
any concerns right now?
Any
So
discussion
moved.
on that?
The 18th might be a problem.
And not at the moment.
Of August.
Yeah, me
I think
neither,
that's
but
Lancy.
we'll deal with that if we have to.
Okay.
But
Yep.
I'll let you know.
So we need a motion on that?
In that case,
Yes.
we'll have to
So moved.
vote on the racetrack.
Motion made and seconded for summer meetings July 21st and August 18th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Director's report, Planning Development Director's report, May 19th. Planning Board term renewal. We don't have a report for Mike or nothing, do
You
we?
have reapplied for
No.
another 5 years of your life.
Paul Weiser and Dean Valier, their terms were to expire. They both signed their oaths today, so I'm good with that.
I said
Oh, good.
I'm at 37.
And I also wanted to let you know that Elizabeth is slated to come back on the 29th of May, so she should be at the next meeting.
Remember, I said 20 years.
No executive session?
No executive.
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn. No, you can't say that. No, you can't, because Paul and I were having a business discussion.
Half and half.
On this. And the meeting-
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.